Hello everyone, this is Alex Lofoco and welcome you all. Wanted to talk a little bit about my pedal board, the one I eventually put together, and I'm pretty proud about what I've managed to accomplish with primarily, well, a bunch of pedals. And I'm gonna guide you through the way I chose the pedals, how I use them, and how I wrote them together. So basically, at the beginning of my career, I actually been always pretty lazy, and I always had this idea of just plugging the bass through the amp and trying to keep it simple. But then over the time, I started experimenting with a bit of sounds and effects. I started to develop some needs, and here's what I've got. So in detail, I mean, there are many pedals on the board, which is actually a pedal train Metro 20, so it's 20 inches wide. And I'm pretty happy I managed to squeeze all of these in this, well, kind of a smallish, medium-small board. And I need to thank all these companies I will be mentioning now. So basically, at the beginning of the chain, I just go through Peterson tuner, which is the new VUE, StroboVUE, which is always on, basically. And it's much smaller than the previous I had, the Stone box with the button, which I find very useful because in the end, I use it as a sort of a pitch reference when I play fretless or even when I start doing bendings, and I use it to double check if my ear is actually in tune. And then from there, I go through my a compressor, actually. I go into this VCA compressor by Trickfish Amplification, which is roughly the same technology of the DBX 160, an old analog kind of a rack compressor, which is a 70s percussive compressor I like a lot. 4:1 ratio, roughly, threshold on the middle, and I have a bit more wet than dry. It's got this kind of a blend control, and the level, I tend to keep it slightly louder when it's on than when it's off, so I can play within that range, and I can adjust my dynamic with my picking technique, or maybe lowering the volume on my guitar. And then that feed from the compressed signal, it goes into my OMNIA overdrive pedal made by Secret Effects, which is a dynamic overdrive pedal I developed with the guys because well, I was always a bit jealous about guitarists being able to use a single channel tube amp and being able to play either clean when they play quiet, and then when they bring the volume up, having a lot of distortion. So actually, through the mix, through the band mix, you don't really hear that much distorted signal, but it really helps cutting through the mix. So it basically works like, in my mind, is a bit like having a single channel tube amp on bass, though, in a pedal. So the compressor is pretty transparent, and I mean, I can still use the overdrive in a dynamic way with or without. And I'm only changing the dynamic with my fingertips. And that's actually the great innovation, I think, of this kind of unique pedal for bass. And I don't have a fretless bass now, but I actually noticed that on a fretless bass, it actually works even better because the slight, overdriven sound kind of blends in nicely with the meowing of the fretless bass. According to how much gain I gave, I can turn it into a clean boost. It doesn't really affect the distortion. If I go a bit louder, and it's very quiet, which is something I like a lot. When I increase the gain, basically I'm telling him, start distorting as a sound point. And then and it's still dynamic, even if I'm pretty high. Just changing the touch makes all the difference in the world. And I like the transparency. That's, I think, key element, especially if you don't want to get lost in the mix. And I've tried over the years, like I said, since 2016, I started looking for a bass overdrive. And I went all around the world in many shops, and they were all suggesting the usual ones. I mean, St. Sam's probably is one of the most common. Douglas, EBS, I think he used to do an overdrive. Agro by Aguilar years ago. I don't know if he's still around, but I think it is. And a few other distortion pedals or fuzz pedals too. But none of them were nowhere near the dynamic or dynamic enough. So they were either clean when they were off or distorted when they were on, but there was nothing in between. And then I eventually found this company, Secret EFX, and we started modifying one of their guitar pedal, the Secret One overdrive, which was actually dynamic on the bass too, but we changed a few components and we worked around, well, basically my signature sound or my signature idea of, like I said, an expression tool more than an effects pedal. And then quickly after the overdrive, I go into SUBOCTAVE by FT Electronics, which is a clone of an old Ampeg octave pedal, the Sub Blaster, I think it was called. And I like it sounds very organic to me. And I keep it all the direct up, because what I like about pedals, I mean, I look for transparent pedals. So when it's off, when it's on, I don't want to hear too much difference. And this is only the direct dry signal. And then I dial in a bit of the lower octave, and I need to be really careful, because if I go too wild with that, really it knocks you down. And then underneath I've got actually a buffer is a buffer and a high pass filter, so it cuts off everything below 20 hertz. So that when I got the octave pedal on, which is an octave lower, actually, it doesn't tremble and creates an earthquake. It's a very powerful octave. Then after that, I go through this loop on this top left. Werk is a German company that makes this kind of a loop where I've got my volume pedal. Now this volume pedal is technically outside the pedal board, but is wired halfway through the chain. So after the tuner, compressor, overdrive, and octave, before going to this delay, which I use for delays, loop station, and occasionally as a chorus, I go out and I connect a volume pedal. So if I have a delay on and do the sort of a swells, if I would plug the volume pedal right at the end of the chain, it will cut down the delay too. But actually this is pretty much a replacement for my guitar knob here. So it's halfway through the chain and feeds into the FLASHBACK to this Elettronica, which I find pretty versatile, also because it got a loop station in it. There you go. So when I'm practicing or doing lessons, actually I find it really useful to And attached to it, I have actually a tap tempo, again made by Werk, a German company, which actually I found pretty useful, being also a stop button, so I can start recording a loop. And then when I am supposed to do a double tap, I can just tap once here, which is very convenient. And it's very, very nice. And then I can just keep press that and it will delete the whole loop, basically. Then after this, that's where actually things becomes very interesting. Because I was doing a session in Germany years ago, and the sound guy showed me this little trick they do in the studio quite often, which is a sidechain reverb. So I do quite like the reverb pedal, but on the bass, I always found that you need to be very careful because the bass is already a muddy instrument. So the reverb pedal, actually the reverb, is a very interesting effect, but if you abuse it, it just puts your bass, right at the back of the mix, and it becomes even muddier. So what this sound guy showed me was to sidechain it. So to do so, I basically split the signal, and I have the pill pedal. This is this black box here. This is a kind of a sidechain compressor, which basically gets triggered by my signal, and when I do pluck, you can see actually later the LED flashes. It means that basically you don't have any reverb on the attack or the note. So the compressor is basically keeping down the sound of the reverb, which actually comes back on the tail. So when I take a note, and you can hear the tail, which I can adjust, of course. This way I found that I have basically the bass right in your face all the time. And it only gets wet with a blend. This is an X blender by Xotic effects. It gets blend back with a clean signal. So basically this is the dry sound. And then I dial in the fully wet sound of the reverb, which is compressed by the thing. So this is how the reverb acts when I'm playing. Only comes back once I stop playing, which means that in this sound you get most of the dry signal. And at the end you get the tail of the reverb. This sidechain compressor works a lot also for synthesizers, but I opted for a plate reverb by UAD, Universal Audio Stompbox Effects. And I quite like it because especially when I play it low dynamic, you can actually hear the reverb is in the signal without getting in the way too much. And interestingly, once by accident, I turned the knob, when I was transporting the pedal board, and there is a modulation control on the pedal, and I left it up. So I was playing, and I didn't expect to hear a sort of a chorusy effect, which is integrated in this reverb. So I have a bit of both. I'm not using a chorus pedal at the moment, but I kind of merge it into the tail of the reverb, and it gets this kind of a nice nuance. And then at the end of the pedal board, I got another secret effects pedal, which is the Awake preamp boost in a pretty compact size. I like a lot. I use it basically as a main volume, which can be a boost if I want to bring the volume up, or actually something to lower the volume. And now I just bypass compressor and overdrive. What I hear this little silver pedal does, adds a little sparkle. Trying to have the same volume. Here, this kind of a tubey-like tone, a bit like, in my mind, is a bit like a twin reverb Fender guitar amp. It's got that very crispy clean, and I think has got to do with the tube in it. So I can hear the top end really popping up. I mean, it's still there, but less sparkly. Which I think is a good, I mean, I like it a lot because it's transparent first and foremost, but also adds that little sparkle, which helps in not getting lost in the mix, especially when you play with a loud drummer and overdriven guitar player. So yeah, that's pretty much a quick overview on my pedals. Hope you like it. If you got any questions, or if you got the same one and you use them differently, let me know how you like them and how you put them together. Thank you for listening, and happy music.